Hey y'all, I know it's been a while. Life gets in the way. And I'm already coughing. Crap. But I had this idea in my mind for a little while, and it was the Roman Empire meme that really made me want to make a video about it. My personal Roman Empire is the Victorian era, and I feel like that's a lot of way for a lot of females like myself, especially if you're geared toward a certain way, if you're just already like a history nerd and shit. But like the Roman Empire, I see a lot of things that were created in that era that we still do with today. Kind of like, well, the Roman aqueducts and the laws and stuff like that. I still see that very similar. Like the biggest example I can think of is primarily the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire, which, if you don't know, a bunch of women were stuck in a factory where they were sewing, and then something caught on fire, and they couldn't get out the windows, and they were locked in, and there was no fire escape at the windows. They had to jump out the windows to escape, and a lot of them died. In fact, I think most of them, if not all of them, died. I can't quite remember the numbers, but I know that was a big thing that kind of pushed towards, better working conditions and stuff like that. But back to what I was saying. The Romantic era, about 1830s. No, think of this as like peak Edgar Allan Poe, peak Emily Dickinson kind of period. Very much Memento Mori, Remember Death. Things are kind of occult, gothic-y. Especially like you see a lot of traditions of modern Halloween start in the Victorian era, because things just got less like super, how do I say, uptight about certain demonic things when it comes to Christianity. People started getting into the occult. I can't remember exactly the timeline for Aleister Crowley, but this is certainly his period. It just makes me think of him. I don't know if he was alive during that time, but he certainly probably studied it when it comes to like demonology, angelology, shit I'm into. Magic, the occult, alchemy. Like, for instance, the alchemical symbol for sulfur is the demonic symbol. Not this one, actually. This is the sigil of Lucifer. But let's see. I have my notes here too, by the way. I actually got two. I got a whole thing of sticky notes just to keep track of shit. But a lot of the writings in the Romantic era, a lot of the literature and art, really dealt with the dislike of industrialization and primarily the yearning for nature. I can't remember what poem it was, but it was something like some kind of prose that was like, I wish I was born a pagan into the wilderness and da 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 da. Like, yeah, because industrialization was a big thing back then. Especially because this is the antebellum era, pre-Civil War. You already know the setup if you're an American, and if you just know American history at all. The South had all the raw materials, the North had all the manufacturing. I mean, there was a little bit of like raw material farming up north, not that much. Just same as not many textile mills down south. It was that kind of back and forth, which was a good setup. I mean, I know the whole slavery issue, but that was a big thing back then. That was a big issue back then. And I'm not even going to try to get onto slavery. Who was that outside? I think that's my roommate. But, so yeah, I can't help but see an echo of this in today's world, because so many of us are just packed into cities. We don't want to be around there. I'm not in a city, but I see the city coming closer to me, living out in the middle of the woods in a small town. And you really did see that, especially with the, like I said, I wish I was a pagan. And I can't help but feel like it's the almost TikTok-y equivalent of, I wish I was a fairy, or I use fae, whatever the fuck pronouns. I wrote this down too. I think these also see not only just the urban versus rural divide, but also things like cottagecore and the idealization of pastoral life. I mean, my outfit is very much dark Maury cottagecore for this reason. Kind of like goth milkmaid looking. And the fact that was already a thing in the early 1800s, mid to early 1800s, the people are getting sick of industrialization and just wanting to move away, wishing that things weren't as hectic and clustered fuck on top of each other, because cities have always been like that, I guess, since the creation of cities. It's been kind of dirty. People will always on top of each other. Whatever. I also can't help but see this derealization and depersonalization, especially because not only was there this kind of like, I am death, I am an angel, or something kind of like occult, almost biblical, kind of creepy-ish in the 1830s. You also get this kind of, you know, the kind of mental ill TikTok. I'm actually a dog, or I'm actually a what is it? A angelkin, or whatever the fuck. And I also feel like this is just a tale of old time. Nature versus industrialization. I know there's plenty of stories that are older than 1800s, like ancient, that go back to this kind of. I want to say it's fucking ancient Mesopotamian, like what is it, Enkidu and Gilgamesh? I want to say, like, I want to say Enkidu was like a wild man. I can't remember exactly. Now let's see. Oh yeah, the spiritual gap. You see a lot of secular, not religious, maybe agnostic kind of types, maybe more spiritual types in the city, kind of the more weird, esoteric, my own individual beliefs kind of people. Meanwhile, out in the rural country, you see a bunch of different churches, a bunch of different church groups, and that kind of community that comes along with it. I can totally see the comparisons from back in the day too, especially because like gypsies were still persecuted and shit like that. I mean, gypsies are still kind of, for a reason though. For a reason. Also, I can't remember where I heard this term. Someone please let me know if you also heard this on a video. Cultural fast food. I want to say it was either like Lotus Eaters or something that said it. And I absolutely see this with the cultural fast food of today, because obviously there's a bunch of pop culture things that come and go, like memes. I'm a meme lover, but memes don't have a lifespan anymore. They have no shelf life. As well as also, like, let's see, the things at the time were also, okay, I know there were, like, seances and stuff like that really started to get popular, and I also can't help but feel like that was also kind of a, like, same way today, just kind of money-making kind of scheme. Like, who was the lady that said that she could, like, create plasma or something, ectoplasm, and she just had like a bunch of gauze in her mouth or some shit? Scammers have always existed, and having that kind of occult spiritual edge, that was always a thing. I mean, there's a fucking palm reader's place just down the road. Now what else? Oh, barely touched this a little bit. A lot of the Eastern occult philosophy started also getting popular. Eastern occult, what am I saying? But I want to say it was not 60s, but sometime 1800s. A Chinese man came to America and documented what he saw. This is a lot of back and forth between Asia and stuff. Like, not only with the Chinese train rail workers. I'm blinking. Watch me suffer a brain fart in real time. Like, obviously that, the Chinese Boxer Rebellion, opium, the Opium Wars. One thing I do want to mention, I do not believe Edgar Allan Poe was a opium addict. I know he was an alcoholic, but that is beside the point. He was also smeared after his death by his rival, and then it was learned like 60 years, in 1860. That was when he was. I'm getting off topic. But, like, for instance, you see a lot of the architecture from, especially if you're in South Carolina, especially the Low Country, a lot of this is still very much kept intact. The churches and general just government buildings have that Greco-Roman revival style, which was a huge thing in that time. The very much, fucking, even before the Victorian era came the Regency era. Words, I can totally speak English. And check out the fashion of the Regency era, especially like the women's fashion. It was heavily inspired by that Greek revival kind of like mythology, elegant goddess or nymph or whatever the fuck. Yeah, flowers in the hair and gauzy dresses. It's elegant, but very much mythology inspired. I guess technically history as well, but I also, I'm sorry, just these echoes in history are always interesting to me. And damn, I've already gone for 10 minutes now, shit. I guess what else left to say other than we should learn from this? And we should expect it again, probably. But what also, I don't remember exactly what made it come, well, actually, I assume the Civil War made the shit come to an end. But, yeah. I think the biggest lesson here is pretty much just reconnect with nature, embrace tradition, reject modernity, essentially. Yeah. Go find yourself a tiny little cottage in the middle of the woods and live there in a happy life. Bye bye.